Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 10 of the Climate Com podcast. And I've got Dr. Oliver joining me today, and it's really quite cool how he has found us. So, just a quick background story. You may have seen that we have a new campaign, and off the back of that campaign is a leaflet, and that leaflet specifically targeting all of the carbon lies and the truth. Well, not all of them, but three key carbon truths, key carbon lies, because the agenda, the whole climate con agenda, is built upon a very fragile stack of cards. And one of those cards at the bottom is all of the CO2 lies. So we're going to get into all of that. And big thanks and big ups to everybody who so far has been a part of our campaign, because over 25,000 leaflets have gone out all over the country, which is quite amazing. And one of those went to the hands of Dr. Oliver. So here is a beautiful example of the power of our campaign. So hey, Oliver.
Yes, hi Travis. Hi, this is Oliver speaking. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for the invitation.
It's a pleasure.
Just a second. I
Let's see
just
what you
need
got
to.
for us.
Yeah, no. Okay, good, good. Yeah, thank you for having me here. Now I can see you again. Yeah, I prepared a presentation for this. I called it just climate change, facts and figures. These, to my mind, are the most important topics related to climate change. So I just want to give you an overview, everything what is related to climate change, and then hopefully you will give also or will get also some new insights, and maybe you also can have some more background knowledge also to convince others to explain some new things that they maybe don't know. So hopefully it can give you some insight, and but maybe some things you already know, but nevertheless I can add maybe some information that are useful for you. Yeah, I would like to start with the presentation. So I prepared some slides, and um, first, some background information. Let me talk a little bit about my person. So I want to give you some background information, and also talk a little bit about my motivation. Um, so to my person, I'm German, and I came to the UK 5 years ago, nearly 5 years ago. And I definitely not regret it to be here, and I really enjoy living here. I'm quite close to London. I live in Buckinghamshire, and yeah, just want to give you some further insights also regarding my profession, and also what I did in the past. So I'm active in business management, 25 years as a practitioner, and also 10 years as a lecturer. I'm currently a lecturer at a private university in London. And as a practitioner, I had a couple of business primarily related to the consumer goods. And I did quite a lot of business in Germany for sure, but also in China and in Hong Kong. So, I did my PhD about strategic management. And this is also one of my favorite topics within business management. So apart from strategic management, it's also macroeconomics. So I really like to study a lot about fiscal policy, monetary policy, but also what is very much up to date to my mind is the Austrian School of Economics. It's a very libertarian approach to economics. To my mind, especially nowadays, very important. Um, Apart from this, I'm very interested in history, in philosophy, politics, and psychology. I think these are topics that are also very important nowadays, especially when you want to understand what is going on, because climate change is only one puzzle in the whole thing. And for sure, I think studying and also dealing with strategic management helped me a lot to understand what is really going on nowadays in the world. Yeah, you really will want to probably will ask me how I came to climate change, to this topic. So I did my first research about climate issues in 2021. And the reason was quite simple, or there were maybe two reasons. One of the reasons was that at that time, after a couple of weeks, I could see when I was confronted with COVID that something is wrong. And then I asked questions, and I had to discover that there are a couple of lies. This motivated me also to have a closer look, or even to dive into other topics. And one of it was a climate change. So this was one of my motivations. And another one was that climate change is also very much related to business management, but I will come to this point in some seconds. Apart from this, I'm also very much engaged in decentral community initiatives, especially one here in the UK, in the south of UK, Hope Sussex it's called. So, and also some other initiatives in the Netherlands and in Germany. These are more local communities that engage very much in independence and in self-sufficiency. So what is my motivation? My motivation is, I'm probably also like you. I'm a freedom-seeking person, and freedom doesn't come for free. You have to do something, and especially nowadays, you have really to fight for it. And I always tell people that freedom, it cannot be replaced by security. If you try to replace it by security, you will at the end lose both. So it's always worth to fight for freedom. And my belief is that freedom is achieved through love and truth. So truth is very important. And also, maybe you know this person, Hannah Arendt. She's a very, very famous German Jewish who had to escape from the Nazis in the 30s. So she's one of the most important theorists in politics, and she studied a lot about totalitarianism and fascism. And she said the most important thing is when something like this is coming up, finding the truth and speaking out the truth. So speaking out the truth and getting connected, both things are very important. So for this reason, it's also very important that there are, on a local basis, that we form communities. Sustainability has a lot to do also with business management. And as I said, I'm a business manager. I studied business management. I was a practitioner, and now I'm a lecturer in business management. And sustainability, is one of the core elements, or maybe core influence factors that drive business management. Sustainability nowadays is really a big, big business also for especially for the very powerful companies, for the whole financial and digital complex. And you really so it's very close, business management and sustainability. And for this reason, I also wanted to get to know more about sustainability, and climate change is definitely one of the aspects, especially when you take a closer look at the ESG agenda, and especially Agenda 2030. So both is very, very, very much connected. Yeah, another motivation is that I'm definitely very much I feel a deep responsibility towards ecological issues. But to my mind, ecological responsibility and climate change is not the same. And I would say climate change doesn't contribute to ecological responsible, at least not the narrative opinion about climate change. I think it's more an obstacle for ecological responsibility, to my mind. Um, so, yeah, but although I have a very positive attitude toward ecological responsibility, this doesn't definitely not diminish my critical attitude towards the climate change. Yeah, and I hope this presentation now, where I will give you a brief overview of the most important topics, that it's makes you or encourage people to think critically, and also you are really invited also make your own research. I have the sources for my findings and also for my conclusions are available. So you will also see them, and maybe you will also have access to this presentation then later on. So you can definitely start further research about this. And finally, I hope that all these climate activists who have definitely, I assume, good intentions, that they take their energy and their resources to fight against the real or to deal with the real environmental problems, and not, to my mind, and not chasing more or less a phenomenon or a phantom that is more or less climate change. So, and especially also, I will talk about a bit about the climate engineering, what is, I think, a very big topic. And yeah, climate activists should, to my mind, focus more on this. So this probably you will already know. This shows here, this is the changes in temperature, and it shows the historical development of these ups and downs of climate or of the temperature. And what is very remarkable is definitely the medieval warm period. And this chart is also shown in the IPCC report, in their first report in 1990. Later on, I think they didn't show it anymore. They probably later on come up, or as far as I know, they come up with a more flattened curve, and then with a hockey stick showing that the warm or the temperature is increasing in the last couple of years. But this is a very authentic chart, and it's also shown in the IPCC report in 1990. And the question is, all those who believe in the climate change narrative should ask the question, was this very strong warm period at that time? Probably at that time it was around about 2 degrees warmer than it is now. Was it so dangerous for the people? Obviously not. They survived, and as far as I know, at this time there was a lot of trade and also a lot of prosperity. So it has definitely a very good or a very positive impact on humans' lives and also on economy. So, and if you see this slide or if you see this chart, then you also need to ask in how far people at that time could influence the temperature, because according to the climate change narrative, the temperature gets very much influenced by CO2 and by fossil fuels. So how was this possible at that time that human beings, or that this was man-made in such a high amount? How was this possible? So this shows that there's something wrong with this narrative. This cannot be the truth somehow. Okay, this is already one slide now showing the ups and downs of the climate. And then here on this slide, you will have seen this already in the presentation of Professor David Dilley. This shows the correlation between temperature and CO2. And it's definitely only a correlation. So here you can see that there is no causality influence coming from temperature or coming from the CO2 and influencing the temperature. So it's just the other way around. There is first the development in the temperature, and this followed by the development of the CO2. This will take place later on, a couple of 100 years later on, with a quite high time delay. So here is only, if you see the whole picture, this is only, these data come from the Antarctic, from the ice cores. And as I said, Professor David Dilley also has shown this. But if you see the more aggregated picture showing the whole 420,000 years, you probably will not see that there is a that there is this gap between CO2 or between temperature and CO2. So here you can see that the temperature first develops and then later on the CO2. Probably later on the time delay, or the for example, if the temperature is increasing and then later on the CO2, this increase then of the CO2 is due to the higher observation, or of the less observation of the CO2 in the oceans. So there is a higher amount of CO2 later on in the air. So there is another chart showing CO2 measurements in the 19th and 20th century. This chart maybe you will not know. I haven't seen it in the previous presentation, but it's also very important here to know. And it shows also the ups and the downs of the CO2. This curve is based on a study from by a German biologist. This was even also a study which was peer-reviewed, and he collected all the studies related to CO2 measurements and made an evaluation, and as I said, collected all the data. And here you can see the results. It said that in beginning of the 19th century, in 1820, we had more or less the same amount of CO2 of ppm. This was around between 420 and 450. And then after the years, it decreased over more than 100 years, and then increased again. In 1945, it decreased again, and now we have in the last decades we had an increase again. Now we have again the same, more or less the same amount of CO2 that we had already in 1820. But what you can see here is that here in 1945, the ppm was 415, and then in the next 15 years it decreased and it became around about 300 ppm. And here you must ask, and especially after Second World War, the economies were developing in a very intensive way, and there were a lot of so-called fossil fuels were consumed and produced, and then you could really ask the question how it can be possible that there was a decrease in the CO2, although especially in Germany there was this so-called economic miracle, and so the industrialization was very strong then at that time. So how it can happen that there was this high amount, or that the ppm could decrease, although there was so much so-called fossil energy consumption at that time. But anyway, there are lots of ups and downs here, and you can see that you really cannot really explain why. But it shows that there is not an increase in the last couple of years, but we had also higher ppm amounts 200 years ago. And these higher ppm amounts 200 years ago were also confirmed by the Encyclopedia Britannica, for example. There was also this amount of ppm was already mentioned at that time. So let me go now to the next one, to the next slide. This is these are measurements or calculations, better calculations, and this chart shows the climate sensitivity to the increases in CO2 concentration. So here you can see a logarithmic curve showing the interesting thing is that here there was a study by different physicists coming from Germany and also from England, and they could show by mathematical calculations, and they calculated here different types of greenhouse gases, and they could show that there is a certain sensitivity of climate to the increases in CO2 concentration. But this is the more the CO2 increases, this gets more and more marginal. So to give you an example, even if nowadays the ppm amount is around about 420, so even if it doubles, if it gets 800, we would only have an increase in temperature in Celsius, in degrees Celsius, of 0.4. So this is not much, and this would even mean that the ppm amount doubles. So, and if you take into account that the man-made contribution to CO2 is quite small, probably it's around about 4%, or maybe it's not more than, definitely not more than 8%. I think Professor Dilly, as far as I remember, I make a calculation, I think he came to 8%. But it's definitely not, doesn't matter now if it's 4% or 8%. But even if we assume the 8%, here you can see how tiny, how very, very small this man-made contribution to CO2 and also to the increase of temperature is. The the turning point between this of this sensitivity curve is around about 300 ppm. So if you if it's under, if there is the CO2 concentration, if it is under 300 ppm, then the sensitivity between CO2 and temperature is a bit stronger. For this reason, there is, you can also assume that when we have, let's say, if we should have less higher or less temperatures, if it gets colder in the future, then probably it's likely that also the CO2 concentration will go down. And as you know, there is a critical threshold for CO2 concentration. We are dependent on CO2. It's good for our life. We need it. And this threshold is around 140 to 150 ppm. So if it gets to this amount, then there won't be any life on Earth. So we we should be happy, let's say, we should be happy to have a higher amount of ppm. So another aspect that you maybe you probably also find if you make some research is what can net zero cause? So net zero is one of the goals of the agenda 2030 of the UN. And it's it has definitely, it would have a lot of impact of our life quality and of our comfort of living due to sacrifice, due to higher prices, due to poverty, and so on. But what you also need to consider, it's also that it even can threaten our life. And in this way, because it can somehow also have an impact on famines, because the gas, the natural gas, is very much used for nitrogen fertilizers. And I think round about definitely more than 50% of these type of fertilizers that is used by farmers are nitrogen fertilizers, and the amount of natural gas being used for nitrogen fertilizers is around about 60%. So if there should be somehow a cutoff or an abandonment or a ban of these nitrogen fertilizers, this could cause massive famine. As far as I know, I think I got also this information by Patrick Moore. Patrick Moore, he was originally the founder of Greenpeace, but then he had to step out of this organization because, as he said, it was completely or it is still hijacked, and so he could not continue his job. But he is one of these people giving this warning regarding net zero and also the cause of famine due to the abandonment of nitrogen fertilizer, which is still very important for farming. So this, you should know.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Climate Con podcast. If you'd like to keep listening with me and Professor Oliver and get into climate engineering, the origins of fossil fuels, are they actually fossil? Are they kind of renewable? What's going on with all of that? The role of technocracy and how that plays into the climate change agenda, and so much more. Come and join us at the ClimateCon Army. Become a member. The subscription fee for the recruit tier has actually been reduced to £2.99 a month. So for less than the price of coffee, you can join the army and get access to all of the exclusive content that gets created, which includes all of part 2s of all of the podcast episodes so far and all of the ones in the future. So come and join us. We'd love to have you there. We're growing and we're growing rapidly, and we'd love to see you there. Together, we will defeat. So just head over to thegreatclimatecon.com, sign up, and instantly get access to all of the exclusive content. Together, we will defeat the Climate Con.